Hello everyone, this is umonox, and in today's video I want to quickly show you how easy it is to replicate a sidechain effect on the Digitakt and what else we can do on the other Elektron machines like the Analog Rytm, for example. Now, initially I did not have the plan to do a video about this topic because I thought this is so easy that it really doesn't need an introduction, you know. But one of you guys just recently asked me if I could show you this method, and so I assume that some of you might still need some heads up for this, and therefore let's go in and let's quickly show you how this works. So first let's create a new project as usual, so we can start from scratch. And now I'm doing really just a very simple thing to show you how this works. I'm on track 1, this is the bass drum, I quickly shape it. Default sounds from the Digitakt sounds like this. Fairly standard. Now let's go to another track, choosing track 5. I load a new sample inside and I'm doing this with the single cycle waveforms again. What should we choose? I think it doesn't really matter. Let's just load something. Sine it, playing it in a forward loop, so we get this. Yeah, fairly standard. Now we will use this as a bass. Let's tune it down a little, see if that works. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, now first let's bring a bass line in. Now for a very simple offbeat bass line like this, let's quickly make this a little bit shorter here. For a very simple offbeat bass line like this, we do not need a sidechain effect because we can make sure that the bass is not interfering with the kick. Let's have a listen. See? Fairly standard, fairly simple. Make this a little bit more bassy. Yeah, just like that. So you see, this is very simple, very straightforward. No need for a sidechain here. However, if we now start to do things like this, let's see, something like this, for example. Things are different now. Let's have a listen. Or let's make it longer. This way it's a bit more prominent, I think. So we have a very long bass now and it's definitely interfering with the kick. And in that situation, what we do is we hold function and put a trigger on these steps. This is where the kick is, this is our bass. And now to replicate the sidechain effect, what we actually want to do, we want to duck the bass away at the spot where the kick is, but let it come through again right here where usually the hi-hat is, so that it's prominent where, but leaves room for our kick. And my method that I'm usually using is pretty simple. I'm holding these steps and just bring this volume down a little to something like, I don't know, doesn't really matter now. Let's have a listen. It's a little bit clicky. Most prominent, I think, when we turn this down. But listen to it without it. You see. So when the bass is longer, we can use this method. This is really standard, really simple. Now, what if we have a more complex bass pattern, which has more notes and everything, and starting a little bit differently, and has some variation inside? Let's quickly program something like this. Let's try this. Let's also make it a little bit shorter again. And let's change the notes real quick so that we can hear it a bit better. sounds a little bit messy. Now when I do things like this again, bring this volume down again, it would sound like this. Pretty simple. It's really simple. So it is a sidechain effect we could use, and it's actually quite usable. But what we do not have, unfortunately, if we want to shape this a little bit more, and if we want to make this a bit more interesting, and maybe let's say we want these sounds to be heard right here just a little more, we would need something which is called parameter slides, and sadly the Digitakt doesn't have these. So we are a little bit limited in what we can do, but yeah, that's just the way it is right now. However, another method that I often use when I do this, let's say copy this trick right here and put that one away and stuff like that, and maybe put a trigger here. Let's see. Maybe another note, I don't know. Let's also make the sound a little bit more interesting by adding in some swing. Now we have a little bit, our baseline is a little bit more complex now, and now things are not so easy anymore, because you see I have the step right here, I have a step here, and to get a good sidechain effect I could do this again, but listen to the result. It could work, but yeah, I think it's not so great in that in that situation. So when I have things like this, generally when I have more complex bass lines, and this is still a rather simple one, but when I have more complex bass lines with longer patterns and everything, I usually resample this on the Digitakt, because this makes life a little bit easier later. I will show you. Let's first put a step right here, so that we can make sure that the recording starts at the beginning of that pattern and not when the first sound comes in. For that purpose, I'm putting this hold parameter away and turn the decay down to 1. So that there's just a little click here. Let's quickly mute that kick. Let's have a listen. We can also hear some sort of a click around here, but this is something we could work on further. It's just for demo purposes now. This click can barely be heard, but it can be heard from the recorder here. So let's hit yes and hit play. And that's already it for now. Okay, let's mute this track and let's unmute the kick again, so we are more or less left with what we had before, but without the bass now. And now I want to save this thing real quick and assign it on this track, just for demo. Now I go to this track and bring the trick up to infinity. I could bring it up to 16, because the pattern is just 16 steps right now, but I'm usually doing this to infinity just to make sure that this loop is definitely running through until the end. And also important, the whole time has to be set to note, so it should not be shorter than that, because otherwise it could stop earlier. So, but since this is the default, you are usually fine here. And now it's just a matter of simply putting a step in here and we have our bass back. See, this one is muted, this one is working. And now it's as easy as doing this. The cool thing about this method is that I'm actually detaching the triggers for our sidechain effect from the actual note triggers of the loop we have. And I'll show you what I mean. Let's do this. Bring it down. Bring this down. Let's have a listen how this sounds. It's a little bit clicky around here. This is due to the notes. I could have worked that out a little bit more by using the amplitude, the attack on our source. Now let's have a listen how this sounds. Let's compare these. This is the one without the resampling. And this is the one with our resampled loop. Apart from these clicks that we must get rid of, this is something we must do before we record that thing. And we can do this with the steps on this track right here. Make sure to add some slight attack to some of these, but it's just to show you the basic principle behind that. I think this is a much better way of working, and on the Digitakt, as resampling is so easy, I'm often using this. Let's quickly mute this one again, and let's go to this track and bring the filter up a little. So this is basically what we have on this track with our sidechain prepared. Let's bring a trick in. We have to re-record that now. Let's go out here, let's mute the kick. Let's actually sample this again. Okay, that's it for now. It's already fine, let's save it and I'll assign it to track number 8 again. And it should still sound the same. Let's have a look at this track. Yeah, our sidechain effect is inside, so let's quickly remove it. Let's have a listen. It's a bit louder due to the normalization process. Let's see. Okay, now I have my kickback. On this track, I want to replicate the sidechain effect as before, so I remove this trick and put these trickless tricks inside. Turn the volume down, turn it down on this one, and on this one it is already down, yeah. So let's have a listen how this sounds on this track, which is not recorded. Let's have a listen. Okay, and now we go to our recorded sample, mute this track and unmute this one. And here we have our trick inside, and now we do this. So I'm not dependent on the actual triggers from the sounds with this loop anymore, because it's recorded. So I can simply put in the sidechain pattern exactly how I want it, like this. For example, I know I hit function without a reason. So let's do things like this, and let's quickly compare these two and see if we can hear a difference. It's pretty steep, do you hear that? Let's compare this. Much steeper here, you see? I can bring the volume up a little bit further. Yeah, and that's basically that's the difference. If you listen to this one, and then to this one, you can hear that this step right here is to be heard. This as well. And on this track, it's more or less sounding better, actually. I don't know how I should describe this to you guys. Probably due to not being a native English speaker, it's a little bit hard to tell. I just simply can't express what I want to tell you. But anyway, well, generally speaking, it sounds better. It's stacking away more in that areas when it does on the track with these note triggers itself, because what we've done by resampling it, we've detached our sequencer from these notes. So these notes are then recorded, and it simply has a different effect. And basically, I'm mostly doing it like this when I do stuff like this. And I can also go in here with the filter and shape this further if I want. But you get the idea, I think. And the reason why this is not so great with the stuff we had before is because we would have to adjust the volume levels of these individual steps to make it sound the way we want. So I should bring these down to 30 as well to get closer to what we have with our resampled one. Let's have a listen how this sounds. You see, it sounds completely different now. And the reason why this is because we do not have parameter slides on the Digitakt. Because what we have to do, instead of just putting these notes down, it's now very steppy. As you see, it's now very steppy, it's not smooth. But to get a real sidechain effect, these things have to be smooth. Those have to be smooth transitions, and by recording the loop on the Digitakt, by resampling it and putting it onto a track again, and just using these trickless tricks to more or less fake the sidechain effect, I can make sure that these things stay smooth. These things stay smooth. And if I wanted to have these transitions smoother, I would have to use parameter slides to make parameters slide between these different values. And this is something we cannot do on the Digitakt, but we can on the Analog Rytm, for example, on the Analog 4, and also on the old silver boxes like the mono machine and the machine drum. They have those parameter slides too, and the octa track as well, of course. So yeah, but this is what I wanted to show you on the Digitakt. This is how it works on the Digitakt. For me, pretty much all the time, I do my baseline the way I want, when I resample it and end up with a bass track or anything I want to apply the sidechain effect to, which looks like this, where these steps are down in volume, these are not affected, and here the volume is going down again. And whatever rhythmic pattern I have in the background, transition will be smooth because it's recorded, it's baked to a sampled loop. Okay, so to round up this video, let's have a look how this could work on the Analog Rytm. Okay guys, and here we are on the Analog Rytm, and same thing as before. Let's first create a new project to start from scratch. Sorry. Okay, here we are with the default sounds. Yeah, okay. Let's actually use this kick. Something like that. Let's just adjust it a little. Yeah, something like that. Okay, let's bring a kick, the basic kick pattern in like before. Fine. Let's now just use the snare drum real quick. I'm deactivating the synth engine now, and I want to load a single cycle waveform from the factory library. Now come on, let's use a square wave on C2. Let's assign it right here. And let's activate the loop. Bring the sample level up. And also adjust the decay a little. So that we have something like this. Okay. Now, same thing as before. I first put this thing into the offbeat, and let's quickly have a listen. It's a bit too loud. The simple offbeat, like before, no sidechain is necessary. Let's increase the length now. Like we did it before, and now the same thing. We hit function and place these triggers. They look a bit different on the rhythm, but they are trickless tricks and have the same effect. So now I take these and bring the volume down. Again to 30. And let's have a listen how this sounds like. It's cutting it away very harsh. And the cool thing about this, about the parameter slides, is that we can now affect this behavior. And I don't know if you can hear this so good when we are using just these simple bass patterns. So let's actually put in some more tricks right here, and let's see. Let's also change the notes on these ones to, I don't know, this. And this one maybe this. Let's see. Let's add some swing. Just make it a little bit more interesting. Okay. Now the parameter slides come to play. What these things do, they allow us to slide between the different values that we have. So if we do not want this transition to be so harsh, we could, for example, let's first show you what I mean. I bring the volume down here, bring it to the same level as it is on the kick, where the kick is, and I do the same here. Let's have a listen how this sounds like. We can barely hear our higher and lower notes. And here comes the important part. These two triggers, I want to slide the values, more or less. But you might assume that it has no effect, because this thing has a volume of 30 parameter locked, and this one has a volume of 30 parameter locked as well. But let's try it out. Let's set these to slides and let's try it out. So you see, strange things happening, but we get to that point. Now, what we can do, we can bring the volume down even further on these. So let's bring it down to 0 and let's see what it does now. Still so steppy, and the reason why it is so steppy is right here we have the volume, and this is not a slide trick. This is a slide trick, as you can see here, and this is a slide trick as well. So let's set this thing to slide and this thing to slide as well. And an important thing is these volume levels are on default setting now. To make the slides work, we have to parameter lock it. Just quickly have a listen how it sounds now. Yeah, currently it's working. Sometimes I have the issue that I need to parameter lock their values and set them fixed. So more or less do this. But in our simple example, it has worked right away. Now, usually it's a good idea. The steps where you want the slide, the transition to happen between, you should parameter lock the values on both steps. It's generally more usable and it's more controllable because you don't end up with any issues at all if things go wrong. Now we can use this thing and bring it back up. Something like this. And you see, we have much more options now to shape this whole thing. Let's bring it down to 0 completely, which is not really a sidechain effect, but still sounds cool, I think. Yeah, it's no sidechain effect, but you see what I mean. You can slide between these parameters and it allows for much more to be done. And we can control the whole effect a little bit better. So let's quickly clear that track again and let's do something else now. Let's put the kick, the bass on the same step as the kick. Let's first play it back. And let's do the sidechain effect like this. Bring these down. Those are not parameter locked now. Well, let's have a listen. If everything goes wrong, we hear dead silence. Yeah, see? Now if we have things like this, we need to parameter lock the values on these steps. And also, we must make sure that none of these steps, let's quickly check if some of these steps still have the slide inside. No, we do not have the slide inside. So let's have a listen to it now. More or less the same as before, where we had these in the offbeat, right? Okay, now comes the interesting part. Let's have a look. I'm starting here. This is on 0. Let's bring this one on like, I don't know, 20. And this one is on 100. And let's bring this one on, I don't know. Let's actually keep it on 100. And here it's back at 0. Let's have a listen how this sounds. You can hear that it's a little bit steppy, right? Watch what happens when we... I see if I can get these steps all at once. No, I can't. Let's see. Watch what happens when I'm activating the slide now. See how these notes are sliding? And now the cool thing is we can actually make our sidechain effect, our curve exponential, just the way we want it. And I can do things like this. Let's do this on 10. Let's keep this on 100. Let's see. Here it's re-triggered because it's sliding back. So let's put the slide from this step away. It's still on this one. Let's remove it as well. And let's just put a slide on these things in between. And now what we can do is, we have a slide. Now, I will show you this in a moment. Let's first bring them all down. Here on 102. This thing on 100. Yeah, let's have a listen. Yeah, it's a little bit weird, but this is because these parameters are sliding. Now, by setting different values of the volume on these steps, we can shape the curve of our sidechain effect manually. And this is what I mean. Let's bring this thing up to 10. Let's raise this thing up to like 30 and let's keep it on 100. Let's do the same on these steps. 10 here, 10 here. And where are we? We are here, okay. So these ones on 30. And this one on 30. And let's have a listen how it sounds now. Yeah. And the more we go up in these volumes, it's actually... Now let's keep this one on 10. And let's bring these up much further. like 70. Have a listen. You see that? It's influencing the shape of our volume change in that case. So it's it actually allows us to make these things steeper or softer just the way we want. Yeah, so we can do it a little bit more advanced if we want. And if we have nodes inside right here, it's also not a big issue. The only thing we have to do is we have to remember the settings of the volumes here. So let's bring this thing in. Let's set this thing to 100. It still stays on slide. So let's do another node here. And let's have a listen. It's raising up quite fast now. These are still on slide. But if you would remove the slide, it would sound like this. See that? It's actually sounding even more like a sidechain now, to be honest. But you get the idea, you know. It's possible. When we do these parameter slides, we have more control over the curve in between, and so if we do not want these things to be so extremely steep, we can shape it with these, just with these things, with these steps. And we do not run into the issue that everything is a little bit too steppy, just due to the fact that the nodes and the values, actually the values here, are sliding. See? So this allows us to shape our sidechain effect even more. So yeah, that's about it on the rhythm. It works the same, and this also applies to the Analog 4 and the Octatrack, as well as the machine drum and the mono machine, because those have these parameter slides as well. Now, yeah, so that's what I wanted to show you in the first place. This is how we can use parameter slides to shape our sidechain effect into the direction we want to have it. If we do not want this thing to be so extremely steep, we can use these parameter slides in various ways to shape the sound in the way we want it. And sadly, this is currently not possible on the Digitakt because the Digitakt doesn't have these parameter slides. Okay guys, so I hope this has given you a little bit of a heads up on this topic. Have fun experimenting with it, and I see you in my next videos. Bye guys!